Welcome to Around the ACL. Michelle Thompson here with Trey Ryder and Jake Brannon. And we have Cornhole Mania coming up this weekend in Windsor, Colorado. So that is going to be the bulk of what we're going to get into this show. And before we get into the details of the brackets and all the things, I wanted to start off with your big picture thoughts. We're going into our second national, Trey. It's definitely going to be important. Obviously, if you didn't do well in the first one, this is kind of the breaking point for getting a better seed. So just give me your thoughts on big picture Cornhole Mania.
Yeah, big picture Cornhole Mania. When I looked at and I wrote my preview article for the kickoff battle, everything was finally. We were finally at this point, and who was going to get that final opportunity to showcase, right? Even though it was the beginning of the season, it had this finality feel to it. Well, when I wrote my preview article for the Cornhole Mania, the recurring theme was chaos. Everything to me was complete and utter chaos when I looked at standings, when I looked at records, when I looked at even down to where people finished, where people were ranked. I mean, it was chaos because we've hit a state of chaos so early in the season, right? When, take, for example, you look at someone like Tony Smith. He's ranked the 14th best player in the world. He's not in a panic mode, right? Even though he's not number one right now, he had a good finish in one event. He's going to wipe away the poor other event. He's going to be able to finish towards the top, right? So that's a very limited case of something that I would deem not chaotic. But on the flip side, when you look at this, if I had told you that the top 5 players in the world at the end of the first event going into the Cornhole Mania before this season started would have been Jeremiah Ellis, Ian Cripps, Eric Davis, Alex Rawls, and Ethan Walker, I think a ton of people would have been extremely surprised to see that list of names through 2 different singles events be there at the very end. Sure, Rawls is probably your least surprised. Maybe some Ellis fans would say they wouldn't be shocked, but I don't know. I know there were 0 people out there that would have said Cripps and Davis would have been in top 5, and you could argue Walker was trending a top 10, top 15 player, but top 5 is a different story. Then you add on the fact that Jamie Graham, Mark Richards, Trey Birchfield, and Matt Guy have an average ranking that is well above 30. That is alarming. The highest ranked out of all those is Jamie Graham sitting at 29. He's the best rank out of all of those right now. We got Caleb Batson at 91. We have Mark Richards at 82. It is insanity when you look at how some of these best, winningest players ever, where they stand coming out of the first event. So for me, my big picture thought going into this second event is who can handle the chaos? Because there's been absolute chaos when it comes to the performances and the results after the first event. And those that can either handle the adversity among the chaos, or those that can thrive in it are going to be the ones that are going to get either back on track or maintain their high level of standing. And those that cannot are in for a very long second half of the season.
Jake, how about you? Big picture thoughts on Cornhole Mania.
Yeah, my big picture thought is the timing between these pro events. In years past, there have been almost 2-month breaks in between the pro events, which causes players to perform, completely different. If one player has a good showing at the kickoff battle, you have to wait a month and a half, close to 2 months before Cornhole Mania in years prior, and they just, they lose their edge. They don't. Not necessarily they play bad, but they didn't play as well as they did at the kickoff battle in years prior. Now we're talking about we only have a couple of weeks in between each pro event, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of these players who performed really well at the kickoff battle perform well at Cornhole Mania this weekend as well. With that being said, I'm really intrigued to see what these players like Ian Cripps, like Braden Wilson, Carson Getty, Hunter Thorson, players who we didn't necessarily have on our radar coming into the kickoff battle. I want to see what they can do at a Cornhole Mania, after they have a pro event under their belt, after, they performed, I'm going to say, above their expectations probably. I want to see if they have what it takes to stay up in those rankings, or they're going to fall back, kind of level out the playing field on where they may supposed to end up at the end of the season.
I don't know. I asked Carson Getty. I said, "Be honest with me. Did you picture yourself in the, the finals here?" He said, "Yes." I was like, "Okay." So surprising to us, but apparently not to him. Rightfully so. So we do have quite a bit of cornhole that you get to watch starting on Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time for shootout singles, continuing into Friday at 10 a.m. for pro women's doubles, and then pro singles later that day. Saturday, 11:30 start time for teams, and then pro doubles later in the day. And then Sunday, we have shootout doubles at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. as our women's, senior, juniors, and pro blind draw. We're going to get into the brackets a little bit later, and so you understand how the brackets are ready for shootout singles and national doubles. So that's what we're going to go through. And then the national singles and shootout doubles will be created after the completion of the other, so we can update the points and the seeding going into the event. So more on that in just a little bit. But first, we had some cornhole this past weekend. Talk about news around the league. Northeast Conference, singles, Jimmy Humans, doubles, Tony Smith and Jacob Jasinski. Mountain South Conference, singles, Dave Moon, doubles, Wendy Selmeyer and Linda Peralta. Illinois State Championship, singles, Ryan Trader, as well as doubles, Ryan Trader and Dawson Cummings. Wisconsin State Championship, singles, Trevor Kufis, doubles, Steve Schrader and Quinn Reeves. Michigan State Championship, singles, Jaden Ellis, doubles, Joe Neested, Jeremy Schermerhorn. Georgia State Championship, singles, Hunter Yaklin, doubles, Jacob Harrison and Zach Akins. And the Canada-Newfoundland Conference, singles, Andrew Spencer. So congrats to all those people. Any quick thoughts, Trey, before we move on to the brackets?
I mean, Ryan Trader continues to be dominant. Jimmy Humans, that is a big win for him when we're talking about in a conference that has Tony Smith and Jacob Trozinski. That's really good trending-wise for me to see Jimmy Humans finishing at a really high level. And then, how about Trevor Kufis?
I told you. He's got confidence now after that Super Hole.
He's really locked in. I don't know if he's going to win the whole thing, but I really like that. Jaden Ellis continues to be the best player in a state that's got a lot of really good players in it.
It's so true. Jake, any quick thoughts on the many conferences and championships over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jimmy Humans. It feels like he always plays well in these conference events up in the Northeast area. So, no surprises there. I really like the Jaden Ellis Michigan State Championship. I love the confidence he has coming into this weekend. I'm going to look for him to make a really strong run in Colorado.
Awesome. All right, we are going to start it out with our shootout singles brackets. And I can't remember if it was which bracket it is, but I saw that Tony Smith and Mark Richards are in the same little quadrant. I'm like, ooh, that's painful. But we're going to get into the details of it right now. So, Trey, go ahead and kick us off on our bracket A.
Yeah, when it comes to bracket A here, I always you guys go look at bracket A, 1 seed, number 1 player in the world, Jeremiah Ellis, right? And as I look forward, I have to say, is he going to be able to continue his momentum and still be the most dominant player that he was at the kickoff battle? And to be honest with you, I'm not seeing a whole lot that's going to stop him. I look here in this first quadrant, Alex Hicks and Noah Almanza, a chance to probably play against each other for a chance to get to Ellis. Maybe that gives him a little bit of an obstruction, but to me right now, Ellis is on a completely different planet in comparison to either one of those two players. Alex Hicks has the potential to do so, but really, and maybe Jake feels differently, but I think the biggest obstacle that may be interesting, right, for Jeremiah Ellis to go up against may actually be in the quadrant below this one, the winner of this quadrant and this one, if Chris Kingsbury gets all the way through match 82 to get there. Chris Kingsbury, for a lack of a better term, is annoying to play against based on his slow and methodical approach. I think first of all, he has to get through Cheyenne Bubenheim, which is in no way, shape, or form an easy task, and that is going to be a fantastic matchup, assuming we get there. But if Kingsbury gets through here with how fast with how Jeremiah Ellis throws and how slow and methodical Chris Kingsbury is, especially in a shootout format in which Chris Kingsbury has already shown some minimal level of success. I think it could be a really interesting matchup to watch, Kingsbury versus Ellis in that second round matchup. But I don't know, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, when I looking through the brackets, I wrote down a sleeper pick I had and a dark horse pick for each bracket. And Chris Kingsbury was my dark horse pick for bracket A for the exact same reason that you said. It's all mental game, and it's all how methodically he plays. And in these round limited formats, I think it's going to be a big factor. So I really like Chris Kingsbury coming out of that quadrant. Other players I really like, I'm liking a Damon Dennis coming in as a 20 seed, not really on the radar for a lot of players, but I think he has a very winnable quadrant. I think the toughest game he'll have is Ryan Hart to get out of that quadrant, but I like Damon Dennis winning that. Going over on the other side, man, my big sleeper pick for this bracket, I like Jaden Ellis. We just mentioned him winning Michigan Open Singles Championship, one of his very first looks at the round limited format. Now, I will say, he has probably one of the most difficult quadrants out of any of the pro shootout brackets, starting off with Cody Henderson. Then you got Caden Allen, Justin Burton Jr. in that same quadrant. And then if you make it out, you're probably playing Gavin Cano.
Jake, you can be all high and mighty you want on Jaden Ellis. This is the exact path that Jaden Ellis would have to take in order to win this bracket. I just want you to walk through this. He's going to have to beat Cody Henderson in game 1. In game 2, he has to beat Caden Allen. In game 3, he has to beat Justin Burton Jr. In game 4, he has to beat Gavin Cano. In game 5, he has to beat Sammy Soto. And in game 6, he has to beat Jeremiah Ellis. There is no way.
All I'm saying is that Wally said the same thing in Hamilton, Ohio, when I picked Jaden Ellis to win open singles, and now he's taking an ice bath this weekend. That's all I'm saying. There's always a chance. And if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. Might as well go through the gauntlet to get it. That's why he's a sleeper pick.
Before we move on to bracket B, the only other thing I'll add is the right side of the bracket to me feels brutal and disgusting.
Awful.
The left side of the bracket
Absolutely
is
awful.
tough. Anytime you have Jeremiah Ellis on your side, that's a tougher bracket, but I don't hate the left side of the bracket. I think it's much more winnable than the right side of the bracket for bracket A.
That is fair. All right, now we got bracket B, and we'll bring that one up here for you. And as I'm bringing it up, though, was there any bracket that stuck out to you as the hardest, or do you feel like they were all kind of equal?
Bracket D is disgusting. D is for disgusting.
I feel like that's how it always is.
D is for death. You know what? We're about to get into B here. If you're in the B bracket, you got to love it. I think B bracket is exactly where you want to be right now, especially this left side. And as we jump into it, and I know you're pulling it up here, Michelle. Yeah. Ian Cripps, look, am I convinced that Ian Cripps is going to go the entire year as the number 2 player in the world? No. So for me, if I'm in a bracket and my 1 seed, I have the choice between Alex Rawls and Jeremiah Ellis and Ian Cripps. I mean, no offense to Cripps, but I'm going to take. I much prefer that. So this, especially this top section here, a great runway opportunity for the rookie Colby Shearer, who started a little bit slower than he wanted to. Has a little bit of runway here. And as we get into the second portion of this bracket, the winner of this plays the winner of the next one. I absolutely love the path for Jackson Gore, as he can. I think he's going to be the favorite to come out of the top in this middle section, make his way into a winner's bracket semifinal. I mean, Pat Sem can continue the momentum that he's already started. But if Jack Gore can overcome the mental side of it, I really, really like this quarter of the bracket for him to go through.
How about you, Jake?
Yeah, had my finger on it too. I love Jackson Gore's path to the King Seed game. Looking through it, I wrote down my sleeper pick. It's maybe another big stretch for you, Trey. So don't get too mad at me this time. But I'm liking the rookie Logan Hall. I had my eye on him a lot during the pro combine earlier in the year, and I think that this bracket layout for him could be pretty beneficial as well. I mean, you have Jordan Power and Blaine Rozier, you have Steven Bernstein in your quadrant, but I think they're all beatable. I think everything is beatable. I think the only thing that would scare me a little bit on the bottom is Logan Chamberlain. But I mean, round limited format, anything can happen. If he gets a couple good lucky bounces, he could very easily see himself playing to get to the King Seed game against Jackson Gore. So we'll see about that. Over on this right side, I was
just gonna say you hit the nail on the head with Logan Chamberlain, but he doesn't have to play him until game 4, which is always gonna be good.
Yeah. I mean, moving over on this right side, I think Braden Wilson has a pretty, I wouldn't say easy stretch, but I'd say less difficult stretch to get to a quarter or a semifinal match. Moving down the list, I mean, I like Matt Sorrell. Well, I guess he'll have to play Fisher Hamilton in the second match. I think the winner of this Matthew Sorrell's Fisher Hamilton match is going to make a really deep run in the bracket, assuming that Fisher can beat Spencer. Don't count out Spencer Fabianar either. I mean, Devin Harbaugh, Austin Cameron. Man, this right side is not too – Ryan Wiedenfeld, his right side's not that bad either.
I love the route on this side of the bracket for Ryan Wiedenfeld. I would agree with you that kind of the top half of the section, I don't love paths for players. For me, I look at Ryan Wiedenfeld, a Cameron D'Ambrosio, he's got to be an elite player, then a Frady Selmayr, then maybe a Zazueta or Justin Duke. I mean, I think either player Wiedenfeld should be continued. So then eventually – in that next game, he's probably got to play Harbaugh, but at some point you got to play somebody, right? But for him to have that 3 or 4 game ramp in order to get into someone like a Harbaugh, assuming Harbaugh can take care of his bracket, which isn't a guarantee in match 45. He might struggle with Austin Cameron. I mean, who knows how good Cameron's been playing, especially in doubles. So, I really like Ryan Wiedenfeld here on this side of the bracket.
All right, moving on, bracket C. And we're about to get into the disgusting one afterwards, but we'll go to C, Eric Davis's bracket.
Yeah, so in here, I like Eric Davis's, and if he can continue his momentum, I like his top half of the bracket. The only one person you always have to look out for is Isidro Herrera, right? Isidro Herrera always going to be, tough and always going to be scary to play against. So always someone that I'm watching out for there. But for the most part, I kind of like Eric Davis's little quadrant here. So I think he should be favored to move on for that one. And then when I look in that next section, if Eric Davis can get past Isidro Herrera, right, that tells me he's playing well enough that he is near the top of his game. And if he's near the top of his game, I like him going through this section of the bracket as well. I don't see anybody out here that is overwhelmingly scaring me when it comes to Eric Davis. Yes, Gage Landis can throw that same type of game, but in my mind, Eric Davis is a natural, better shot maker. And if we're going to go toe-to-toe against someone that has a similar play style, I honestly like Eric Davis. So for me, and then all the way comes down to who's going to meet him in the winner's semifinal. So it will be at the bottom portion of this bracket. And then, as you alluded to, Michelle, Tony Smith and Mark Richards, a similar layout in the first national. At least in this one, they don't even have to play each other until game 3. But still, this is a very loaded bracket who ultimately meets the winner of the bottom bracket, which I think is wide open. I mean, this bottom quadrant is completely wide open. So I really think Smith or Richards wins that third to last section. So that becomes the team that ultimately matches up with Eric Davis on that winner's semifinal on that end. And again, Davis, tough matchup, but if you're going to have a runway into a player like that, you'll take it every day of the week.
Mm-hmm. Jake?
This Tony Smith, Mark Richards quadrant really intrigues me. I don't know. I just have a gut feeling that makes me think if there is going to be any major elite over a top-tier pro upset, man, I kind of like Hayden Gonzalez, man. He's a good kid. And like I said, anything can happen. But, looking else through that quadrant, you have a Mike Hoffman. He finished third in his shootout bracket in Palm Beach, Florida, beat Devin Harbaugh, beat a couple other really top-name pros. The only person he lost to was Tony Smith, and that was a really close game as well in that bracket. So I mean, you never know with Mike Hoffman, but yeah, I mean, obviously Tony and Mark should be the favorites to get out of it. But I got my eye on that Hayden Gonzalez kid. I want to move over to the right side of the bracket. The one name I wrote down, and it's another stretch. I mean, I've been going on stretches for all of these brackets. I'm looking at Leston Allen over on this right side. You have not heard his name once in almost over a year. But, coming from experience, watching him a lot, dude is back. If he can take down Alan Rawls, he's got to play Ryan Schrader. Oh, man, it's a tough quadrant. But Leston has round limited experience. 2020 Pro Invitational Qualifier number 6 champion. Fun fact for you right there, Trey. Just going down the list, you got a Derek Holland, who's always sneaky good. Mike Ferreira, 26 seed. You always end up seeing his name further down the line. And then you got another really top-tier pro versus an elite player matchup in Adam Kistner versus Tony Forbes. I think Tony Forbes is probably one of the, if not the best amateur in the country right now. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tony Forbes takes down Adam Kistner. And if that is the case, I feel like the winner of this game, no matter what, has a pretty decent chance of making it far in the bracket. And then, moving down the list, you got a Ryan Smith. Jeremy Frazier is always somebody to look out for. And then, again, this bottom quadrant pretty much wide open. I feel like any one of those 8 players has a legitimate chance to make it out of there, so we'll see what happens.
So let me get this straight. Jake is going with Jaden Ellis with the most outrageous bracket of all time that he's got to get through. He's going to take Hayden Gonzalez to win his game, who's against some guy named Tony Smith in game 1. And then he's going to go with Leston Allen, who has to beat forever top 10 player Alan Rawls, followed by Ryan Schrader in order to just get into game 3. Do I have that right? Jake, guess what? You don't even need to give a hot take.
Yeah, you're good.
You can just you're good on hot takes. You can just sit there at the end and do it. I mean, that's the only thing I want to add here is on that right side of the bracket. I know we don't need to pull it back up, but I love the path for Ryan Smith because not only do I think his 8th is winnable, I think his entire quarter is winnable. When you look at the top seed in his quarter, the 2 top seeds ahead of Ryan Smith are Jeremy Frazier and Dalton McClem. For me, those are both winnable games for Ryan Smith. It would not surprise me whatsoever to see Ryan Smith in a winner's bracket semifinal of bracket C.
All right, here it is. Bracket D.
D is for death. So congratulations, Ethan Walker. You get D for death as the number 1 seed. I don't even love his quadrant, right? Let's say he wins. He doesn't win. He gets a bye the first game. Good job. That's an easy into the second round. But then you're going to have to play Holland or Purser. Both can give you fits. I don't love that.
Disgusting.
Then I'm playing either Maudlin or Humans, probably. Don't love that as far as the second game goes. I go down to the next section. Oh, I got the 2 of the 3 winningest players of all time in Trey Birchfield and Janie Graham. I probably have to play one of them there. Don't love that. I go down to the next section. One of the top players. My 4 seed is Chris Royable, right? Which I'm assuming is going to give me a little bit of a break. It's not. Oh, who's my 45 seed or 45 seed? Yeah, it's Ryan Windsor, some guy named Ryan Windsor down there in the 3rd section. And then at least I don't have to play someone that just won an open. Oh, wait, Landon Crabtree just won an open, so he's down there. I have a former world champion in Tanner Halbert on my 12 seed. Joe Neistat, just a measly 5 seed down there at the bottom. Let's just keep going. I'm going to go through this whole bracket, and then Jake can follow up with all his little thoughts, right? But because on the top right here, we're just going to keep going. Alex Rawls, I could argue, one of the best players in the world. At least he doesn't have the winningest player of all time in his quadrant. Just kidding. Yes, he does. Matt Guy sitting there at the 15 seed. Hunter Thorne, I don't even have time to talk about. Next one, at least we don't have a current world champion as a 23 seed. Oh, wait, yes, we do here in the D bracket. Caleb Batson as our 23 seed. He's going to, Jordan Kamba having a great start to the season as a 7 seed. Sorry, Jordan, you got to play Jordan Kamba. I mean, you got to play Caleb Batson there in your in your third game. Then let's just go to Jacob Trzezinski as our 3 seed. That's fine. At least he's seeded right. So is everybody else in this quadrant, right? No, just kidding. Jacob Gore's a 19 seed in our little section here. He's going to keep running. Oh, and Trzezinski's got to play Mason Trader. You want to play another Trader player? I guarantee you Mason's not a walk in the park either. And then finally, we're going to go on to the bottom part of the bracket, which is about the only winnable section of this entire bracket. So I guess congratulations to Caleb Franklin and Berkeley Payer. You're got kind of the best draw to go here, but you still got a world champion Eddie Grindersleeve. Jake, I don't know what to do with this bracket. It's disgusting. D is for disgusting and death, and it's awful.
I mean, I don't even know what else to talk about. I mean, there's so many storylines. I mean, like there's players you didn't even talk about, like Tanner Halbert, a 12 seed. I mean, Robbie Davis coming in. I've had the ability. Like I played Robbie Davis at a regional on Wednesday night, and I got my butt whipped by him. And he averaged like a 13. Dude's ridiculous as an elite player. You have, like you said, Ryan Windsor, Landon Crabtree, Jawan Smith. But I'll tell you what, who's winning the bracket? It's not a single person that you mentioned. I'll tell you who's winning the bracket. It's Chris Roybal. Watch. I'm telling you right now. He finished second in his shootout bracket in Palm Beach, and nobody's talking about him. I love the kid from Arizona. He's going to make a good run. He's going to surprise a lot of players. Look out for Chris Roybal. But, man, this bracket's awful. Awful.
I do like his path in the death bracket. He's in the death bracket, but all things considered, I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, we got to get into our doubles. This is going to be national doubles. This is 221. Starting out with our bracket A. Trey, take it away.
All right. Yeah. Bracket A, same thing when we talked about Ellis. Bracket A, number 1 seed is always going to go to the number 1 player in the world, okay, or the number 1 team in the world. That is Tony Smith and Mark Richards. They caught a little bit of flack, right? Because some people just didn't think their path to that championship, the path to win it, was that level of difficult. The problem, my response to that is, well, they did about as good as they could do statistically. They averaged over a 1.0 DPR against pro-level talent and completely dominated everybody along the way. So I can't give you much other than that, right? If I do look at this, I think they get a little bit of a runway in order to play decent level talent. Dylan Turpin can always be there. The question mark is always just going to be Kingfisher. We know Turpin will push them. Rawls and Kingsbury may give them a little bit of something to think about and to stumble upon, especially if Alan Rawls can play at really his high level ability. But I really think the major team in their path is going to come in the bottom left side of this bracket, because you have one of 3 candidates. I believe it will be an absolute brawl to come out of this bottom left section. That's Jacob Gore and Hunter Thorne, the reigning world champions in Eddie Grindersleeve and Caleb Batson, and then Jeremiah Ellis and Ryan Hart. Can Ryan Hart elevate his game in order to get Jeremiah Ellis onto a podium in doubles? So it's definitely, at least on this left side to start here, Richards and Smith to win, but those 3 in particular down on that bottom left give me the biggest worry if I was Smith and Richards.
Jake?
Yeah, let's move over to the right side real quick. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head with everybody on the left side, but over on the right side, I think Ryan Smith and Ryan Wiedenfeld have a pretty decently doable path to the semifinals, a match to get to the King Seed game. I mentioned Robbie Davis, Dawson Manuel. They're not a terrible team, but I mean Ryan Smith and Ryan Wiedenfeld are Ryan Smith and Ryan Wiedenfeld for a reason. Moving down, Trey Hunt, Bobby Hunt intrigue me. I think they're only going to get better as the season progresses. I like them a lot. Caden Allen, Kobe Costanza, not a team to snuff out, really. Caden Allen has been pretty quiet. He had a really good, amateur season last year, but very quiet so far on the pro circuit. So I have a feeling, I assume he's going to have a breakout pro event coming up. Maybe this is it. You never know. Kobe Costanza doing it as well. Move down here. How about the Trader brothers playing each other? Alex Hicks, Ryan Trader, Matt Wilson, Mason Trader. That's a really intriguing game. Not a lot of people talk about Matt Wilson, the janitor, as they call him. He's very good, one of the top amateur players the ACL has. So it's gonna be fun to see him. But my sleeper pick for this bracket is down here at the 19 seed, Cheyenne Bubenheim, Jeremy Fraser. They have a very winnable quadrant, I would say, assuming that they can take down Alex Six and Ryan Trader. You never know, but it's going to be tough to win. So we'll see. But
how about
I
two
like
sets of
Cheyenne
twins
Jeremy
in the same bracket?
Yeah, 2 sets of twins in the same bracket is hilarious. Absolutely
what are the
hilarious.
chances?
I absolutely love that. If I give my bold take, you mentioned Smith and Wiedenfeld. I'm going to get on the Jake train right here and go crazy. I bet Ryan Smith and Ryan Wiedenfeld don't give up 12 points before the King Seat game. That's how much I like their path.
Wow. Bold.
Okay.
All right.
Very doable.
Bracket B, Trey.
All right, Davis and Sorrells. I think it's going to be tough because you drew an 8 seed and the team that I still think right now you could argue is the best in the world. I know Tony Smith and Mark Richards are number 1, but I just can't ignore what Hister and Birchfield have done over the past 4 months on the open side of things. So if you're Davis and Sorrells, you got another 1 seed in your little 8th or your little quarter of the bracket, and that sucks. That's just I don't know another way to put it. So I really like Hisner and Birchfield here. They'll battle with Davis and Sorrells. On to the bottom side of the bracket, I know Graham and Maudlin are the favorite here, and I still think they should be the favorite, but Bernasette and Lopez are looking like a unit right now. They look really good. I thought at times they were a top 10, top 5 team. When I watched them at the kickoff battle, I was waiting to see how they would gel, how they would mesh, both with new partners this season. So when I look at that top, Hister and Birchfield, who's who I think comes out of there, and then you combine that with one of these teams 4 or 5 seed out of the bottom, I'm really interested to watch that semifinal matchup. But the only thing I'll have to say is if we get Bernasette, Lopez, Maudlin, and Graham in a game against one another, I mean, that might be the longest game of all time. Like literally the longest game of all time, and it'll only be 11 rounds.
True.
Real quick on that left side, because if I'm being honest, I'm kind of surprised. Just you walked right over him. I'm really interested in this Blaine Rozier, Colby Shearer pairing. One-time pairing, both players, pro partners, could not make the event, so they decided to pair up. I'm kind of interested in this one. They don't have a lot of chemistry, which always doesn't necessarily bode well, but they can both throw very well. And I'm telling you right now, if they can somehow upset and beat Frank and Jamie, they're winning their quadrant.
How does that work?
Telling you, they will have.
Because they're not a part. Like, so they win. How does that work for seeding? Because they're not a team.
Well, they'll be just a bottom seed. Yeah, they're just. I mean, you earn points as a doubles team. So if they win the whole thing and they get with their original partner at the beginning, then they won't be able to continue to earn points as a team.
Got it.
Yep. So, but it's a team to look out for. But let's go over to this right side. I'm looking at that 2 seed, Jackson Gordon, Sammy Soto, and I'm looking at everybody else on this right-hand side, and I don't know what it is about it, but I think this may be the easiest path for a team to get to the winners finals I've seen in a while. I mean, there were a couple of decent matches. Mike Pereira, Damon Dennis are always going to be tough. Genie Ramirez, Chris Roybal are one of those surprising teams that can get hot. We talked about Trevor and Jared Kufis. You never know what's going to come out of them. Duncan Clemmer, Josh Holland had a pretty decent run in Palm Beach, but I wasn't super impressed by them. Jordan Power, Joe Neesett coming off an 0-2 performance in Florida, so you assume they're going to do better, but you never know. But yeah, I mean, I think this right side's pretty much wide open for Jackson and Sammy to kind of walk right through it. And I think I'll follow you up, Trey. I'd be surprised if they give up more than 12 points before the semifinal game. Looking through it.
By the way, Jammy is absolutely their new nickname. That is absolutely what I'm calling Jack Gore and Sammy Soto.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
Just somebody put that on a T-shirt because it's absolutely happening.
The Jammy. Yep.
The Jammy. Team Jammy.
Bracket C.
All right, so this one is certainly interesting because Frisch and Cameron I thought played above their potential in that first event, right? There's nothing wrong with saying that they capitalized when they needed to, right? So now the question is, can they follow it up? I think they're going to run into a test early with either Brett Guy, Matt Guy, Mike Harvey, Ian Cripps, because I think Cripps is kind of in that same category of kind of an overperformer in that first event. And now it's about to see where he lines up. The good news is, Brett Guy in particular hasn't been that great so far this season. Matt Guy has actually statistically been very good, especially in doubles. Okay. So if Brett Guy can figure it out, Frisch and Cameron are going to have a tough team ahead of them in order to get to that next round. When we go into the bottom section, Scheibner and Landis, I think another one of those teams that really played well, made it all the way to a broadcast court. Can they do the same thing again? That is ultimately going to be the question. Sims and Wilson are going to be one of those teams that everybody's going to be watching to see how Braden Wilson can follow up such a really strong performance. So I think the whole point I want to make here is of bracket C, if I'm going to pick a half of any of the brackets in doubles here, I think this left half of bracket C is the most wide open. I know if I went to you, Jake, and I told you Frisch and Cameron win, I can believe it. Guy and Guy win, I can believe it, right? Even Scheibner and Landis, obviously you'd believe it. Sims and Wilson, Hunter and Sem, all of these guys, it wouldn't be a really that far-fetched to say any one of those teams I just mentioned kind of win an entire side of the bracket, which to me makes it the most wide open.
Yeah. Kaylee Hunter, Pat Sem are my team to look out for on here. If they can go on a run, they can 100% walk right through that left side of the bracket. Now, going over to this right side of the bracket, a complete 180-degree flip. The very exact opposite of wide open. I mean, you have Derek Holland and Alex Rawls coming in as your 2 seed. Their first match could very possibly be Ryan Windsor and Matthew Creekkiller. Already off to an awful start. Looking down the list, you got Ricky Gonzalez, Ernest Cisneros. A lot of people aren't talking about them. Doug Zaff, Ty Lopez always have strong runs at these pro events. And then you got another brother duo, Tyler and Tubby Cobb. That top quadrant, very interesting. I like it a lot. This bottom quadrant, arguably even more interesting. You got Kyle Malone and Devin Harbaugh. Another one of these super teams that are kind of flying under the radar right now. Not a lot of people are talking about them because of all the, Tony Smith and Mark Richards hype. So I would love to see Kyle and Devin make a deep run, possibly win the bracket. Their second match, could very much be Jimmy Humans and Brady Foster, which is no slouch whatsoever. And then after that, you're looking at maybe a Justin Rule, Travis Purser, who was another dangerous duo that are kind of being swept under the carpet just because of the amount of talent. But this right side of the bracket is tough. I don't think Derek Holland and Alex Rawls make it out of the bracket. I think they make it out of the quadrant, but they don't make it out of the bracket. So we'll see what happens.
Kyle Malone, Devin Harbaugh are going to be angry in a good way. I think they're going to be tough to beat.
Yep.
Last one, bracket D.
All right, last one. I wouldn't say D is for death in this case. The D is for, I don't know, another word that's like
delightful?
Moderate. So it's not delightful, but it's hot.
Okay.
Gideon Thorson, another team that I said I think overperformed based on where I pinned them. So that's great news for everybody else in the bracket. I think is like I don't have a dominant 1 seed. I have a very good 1 seed, but I don't have a dominant one. They'll look to continue on that run here. I like Gideon Thorson in their little quadrant here. I mean, Herrera and Jones can get hot sometimes. Just Kamba and Zockline could put it all together. Those are two players that have been playing for a very long time. If they are able to get some of that magic back, they could be very difficult to beat. But I kind of like Gideon Thorson on their top left side of the bracket. The problem is I think what they end up running into coming out of the bottom left-hand bracket is going to be very difficult to handle. I think Burton Jr. and Chamberlain are still one of the best teams in the world. I really expect them to come close to winning, if not win, a pro event this season. So they're going to be tough. They do have to probably go up against the Tanner Halbert and Jacob Trzynski, another one of those teams that I think could be really, really dangerous. So whoever wins this particular quadrant going up against a Getty and Thorson is going to give Getty and Thorson everything that they can absolutely handle.
Jake?
Yeah, for sure. Not much to add on the left side of the bracket. JBJ and Logan scare me. I think they're going to be angry too. Coming in as a 4 seed, obviously they think they're better than a 4 seed, so I'm looking for them to perform well as well. Moving over to this right side of the bracket, I think this top quadrant is one of the, if not the most wide open quadrants of the entire pro doubles all 4 brackets. I mean, Nick Patuski, Frank Barona going to give Les and Adrian a battle, but I assume they'll win. And then you got Nick and Frank versus Corey Gilbert, Dean Norton. Corey Gilbert, Dean Norton, another team that kind of just burst onto the scene in Palm Beach. Nobody really expected it, but they had good runs in national doubles and in shootout doubles. So they're kind of coming in saying, "Hey, man, we belong up here in this top echelon of pro doubles teams." So I'm excited to see what they can do in their second pro tournament of the season. But yeah, I mean, Max Dow, Travis Graven, Jack Engelken, Trip Baker, a lot of mid card teams that have a very solid chance of making it through the bracket. Now, if we move down into this bottom quadrant, it's a little bit different. I'm liking Alec Ryan and Ethan Walker, but I want to see what board conditions are. If they are as sticky and as tacky as they were in Palm Beach, Alec and Ethan are going to be very hard to beat. I think they are the 2 best players in the world on sticky boards. But then you look down a little bit further, you got that little 6 seed that I don't know how they're only a 6 seed in Fisher Hamilton and Gavin Cano. Gavin Cano, arguably one of the best players in the entire world right now, period. Going up with Fisher Hamilton, who coming off an open win with Landon Crabtree. They're going to be tough too. Looking through it, I wouldn't be surprised if the overall finals of this bracket are Fisher and Gavin versus Alec and Ethan. So we will see what happens, but it's going to be a fun one for sure.
Absolutely. All right, it is time for underrated, overrated, or properly rated, which is I thought would be fun after just one event, just to kind of see where things are. So I'll give you a ranking. You let me know if that's underrated, overrated, or properly rated. First one, Jeremiah Ellis at number 1. Trey.
Man, I mean, can you go underrated? But I think, look, he's properly rated right now. I think when I watch him play in singles, he looks the most confident at this very moment. I've talked to many pro players, though, that'll say it's so much harder to stay up there than it is to get there. So the question is, we're going to learn a lot about Jeremiah Ellis in this second pro event of the year. I'll say properly rated for now.
Jake?
Yeah, for sure, properly rated. I think him and Gavin are 1A and 1B in my eyes right now, but Jeremiah has a little bit of an edge with that national singles title. It's hard to beat him. It's hard to beat him. He has an open win a few weeks back as well. He's properly rated. There's nobody else you can put in front of him right now, in my opinion.
Ethan Walker at number 3.
Yeah, number 3 for Ethan Walker, I'm going to say a little bit overrated right now. I think the board conditions at that first event did play a little bit overly tacky, and because of that, I think, like Jake said, he is going to be a really great player in those conditions. I have to see him play a more continued success at moderate board conditions in order to say that he's going to be a top 5 player in the world. So for now, I'm just going to say a hair overrated. I still think he's playing in the 5 to 8 range.
Jake?
I disagree. I think he's properly rated. We know that Gavin and Jeremiah are 1 and 2. And I have absolutely no problem putting Ethan at my 3. The past 2 weeks in Palm Beach and in Westwega, Louisiana, he has been a monster. Are there other guys that could possibly go there? Absolutely. But there's also a very strong case to put Ethan up at the 3 as well. Solid finishes all around, and he has 3 open titles this season. It's hard not to put him in the conversation, to put him at 3. I made a social media post earlier in the week asking people, who else would you put at the 3? Because we know that Gavin and Jeremiah are 1 and 2. And reading through the comments, there are a lot of people who advocated for Ethan being 3, and I have to admit, I kind of agree with him.
Okay. Devin Harbaugh, number 10.
I think a little bit underrated. I think Harbaugh is still going to be a 5 to 10 guy right now, sitting at 10. I think that's in the lower half of his range. I'm going to go underrated right now.
Jake?
Yeah, same thing. I said a tad underrated. If I had to go through, I'd probably put him at my 5 or my 6, maybe my 7. But the top 10 is always just so stacked and so solid. It can flip flop any day. But he's definitely in the 5 to 7 range in my opinion. So I'm going to say a tad underrated.
Moving into doubles teams, we got Wilson Sims at 11.
This is a tad overrated for me. I think this is a top 15 team. I think Braden Wilson had a phenomenal, best ever type of event at the first national event of the season. I'm not sure if he can sustain that throughout the entire year. So unless we see a big uptick from Sims as well, this feels like a 15, 17 team that's playing really well at 11.
Jake?
Yeah, same thing. Just a little bit overrated. Like you said, Braden had a fantastic first couple of weeks. I think he can keep it up. I think he has the potential to keep it up, but it's all going to come back on what AJ Sims can do. I think they're a great team right now, and it's not really a knock on AJ and Braden. I just think I could name 10 doubles teams that I would put in front of them.
Guy at number 17.
I'm going to go properly rated. I wanted to go underrated, but I got to go properly until I see something better out of Brett Guy.
Jake?
Yeah, I said properly leaning a little overrated, and it's for the exact same reason. I haven't seen enough out of Brett Guy to make me want to put them any higher than that 17, 18, maybe 19 range. I just don't think Brett's performing well right now, and I'm not impressed or scared by them at this point.
Kingsbury Rawls at number 20.
I'm going to go underrated. They're a top 20 team, and for them to be at 20, I think they underperformed at the first national, so I'm going underrated.
Jake?
I said properly rated. They have the potential to be up there, but I don't think they've reached their peak yet. So I want to see what they can do in Colorado this weekend, but right now I'm going to say properly rated.
It should be, to your point earlier, it should be faster boards. Colorado is a dry climate, so just interested to see how that plays into the event. All right, it's time for hot takes, Trey. What you got?
All right, hot takes. I'm going to give you my 4 winners. I already put out my preview article, so you can read that on the website. But my 4 winners, I got Jeremiah Ellis winning shootout singles. He continues this run, and then the luck runs out in national singles. He can't win everything. He can't make the broadcast and everything, right? So I think he does get that shootout signature victory. But then Alex Rawls wins national singles. I thought he was the best player in the entire building who didn't make a broadcast court. I think Smith and Richards get the shootout doubles win. I really like their bracket. That was their national bracket. But I do like Smith and Richards to get a shootout win. They come up short in national doubles because I am going Kyle Malone and Devin Harbaugh to be angry coming into the second national of the year. So I have Ellis, Smith and Richards, Rawls, Malone, Harbaugh as my 4 big winners on the weekend.
Jake, how about you? Even though you gave us like 100 earlier.
I gave you a whole bunch of them earlier, so I'm going to just keep it short and simple. This hot take only revolves around one player, and that player is Tony Smith. I think Tony Smith walks into this weekend absolutely on fire. I predict that he will be the best player in the entire building all weekend, and he will win every single bracket he competes in.
Okay, and I'm going on Devin Harbaugh. I don't think it's a hot take to say that he'll win his bracket, make it to the finals. I don't think that's super hot. But Devin Harbaugh gets the win in either national or shootout singles. I think he's due. He's been there a few times in the finals. It's time for him to get that win. So I'm picking Devin Harbaugh as my hot take this week. All right, that's all we got time for. Everyone enjoy all the cornhole this weekend. Keep in touch on Facebook and YouTube and ACL Cornhole TV and ESPN Plus. We're going to be all over it. So we'll see you over there.